play better.
You feel that your opponent today brings a little bit of all or nothing?
I don't know. I only played him once, so I don't really know his style yet.
Look forward to seeing you playing your game, Levon.
Thank you.
It was a loss for Levon Aronian in Game 1 against Hans Niemann, and it was a loss for Magnus Carlsen in Game 1 against Alireza Firouzja. Now with the white pieces, Magnus Carlsen, is this looking better? After only one move.
So far. Yeah. But it's about how Magnus focuses, I feel, in this game, whether he can avoid those kind of external thoughts. And laughing, in general, we love to see it, but not maybe throughout the entire game. Yeah. So he does start with the English opening Magnus, and then after a bit of thought, he brings his knight out. So this could transpose into a variety of openings. It could transpose to the Queen's Gambit, the Catalan. OK, this is still well-known stuff. Magnus now will push one of the white pawns in the centre. And, OK, still much more steady, at least, than the last game in terms of the opening. Magnus, though, he's back at his old tricks, laughing again. He captures a pawn, trading off here, and a variation, at least, of the Queen's Gambit declined. Still well-known stuff, but not supposed to be the most critical.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's not critical at all, and that all Alireza has to do with the black pieces is just support the centre, and then this is the problem. The light squared bishop that black has will manage to get outside the pawn chain.
Yeah, just a very solid start. It feels like Magnus, today, he's just trying to avoid any theoretical battles where it's about homework, it's about who's kind of prepared harder. But it also feels like he's freestyling, and that's dangerous in speed chess. In longer games, you can get away with freestyling. At the critical moments, you stop, you pause, you kind of pull yourself back from the brink. But in rapid chess, whenever I freestyle, it tends to go a bit wrong. I mean, he's just smiling at, looking away from the screen again, just kind of choosing his move according to his mood, and that's a dangerous game. What do you guys think of this opening choice? Do you think the kind of strategy behind it will favour Magnus later on? It will become a slower game, at least. No immediate fireworks.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, Firouzja is a very dangerous attacking player, tactical player. So I think fixing the pawn structure does make a lot of sense. But I'm still a bit bewildered. It'd be interesting to see the quality of his play in this game, to be entirely honest. This is one of the main ideas here, and this tries to stop black developing the light square bishop to the normal square. But this line is supposed to be equal, but Magnus often doesn't mind that. I mean, he often plays positions which are equal as long as he enjoys playing the middle game structures. And I think that's a lesson to take, everyone should take home. You don't always have to play an opening to get an advantage. You can play openings that just get you positions you enjoy playing. So I think the main move here is to try and develop, well, there's many moves here, but it's quite, early days so far. But he must be listening to a podcast, and I really want to know what podcast he's listening to, because it's obviously pretty funny. And I need to get myself some of that podcast, whatever he's on. I want some of it. So, what
must be one of the Good Night episodes. Which one is the funniest,
David? That's a chess one, though. I'm not sure that he would be allowed to listen to a chess.
We've had some funny podcasts in the past with Anish Giri, with Jordan Van Furst. With Eric Hansen, a few others.
Yeah, could be listening to
with you, Simon. Maybe it's the podcast we did with you a few months ago.
Must be.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I did like that tweet earlier on that we saw from Tricky Dicky saying, can Magnus laugh his way to 1 out of 1? And this is the major move where black simply just forces that bishop to come to the f5 square. And very natural developing move from Magnus. And I'm kind of curious, what is everyone thinking about Magnus, Alireza? Who are you cheering for? How are you supporting your favourites? And remember, there's a selfie competition going on. It's a selfie competition, so we do like to see pictures in landscape mode. And remember to tweet us using the hashtag #ChessChamps. How are you cheering for your favourite player?
Yeah. And we're especially big fans of foam fingers, just so you know.
Haven't seen any so far.
I know.
No, I haven't seen any yet. But you guys, our viewers at home, they are just so creative. they will just blow our minds.
I should have brought mine. I have two foam fingers. Yeah, whenever I go to sports in the US, I buy foam fingers.
Do you have any with Magnus on it? Or?
No, I have New York Rangers and Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls?
Yeah. No, I haven't found any chess ones, but we must make them. Yeah.
Definitely.
Next time for the tour, the last major, and if it's an in-person event, we can have those fans with foam fingers.
Yeah.
We might
Or
get
can we
some-
even be like pieces?
Yeah.
Queen.
We might have to
Queen.
get ones with David on, mightn't
Yeah.
we? Depending on what happens, potentially, just to make you more nervous, David.
Ooh.
Thanks, Simon.
Sorry.
No pressure at all.
Yeah. For anyone who is joining us late in this tournament, earlier we were celebrating David's incredible gold medal in the chess Olympiad, and doing so, our tour director challenged David to and invited him to play in a Meltwater Champions Chess Tour tournament. And David will think about it.
I mean, if Magnus promises to play like he did in the first game against me in that tournament, then I'll say yes, definitely. But yeah, it's a lot of preparation to do to become one of the strong players like these, or even to challenge some of these guys. They all work so hard, many hours a day with big teams behind them. It's
It's their job, right? This is what they do all day, every day. Prepare.
Yeah, I think people forget like just how much preparation you have to do to compete at this level. I mean, it's hours every day. I mean, you're talking 5-6 hours preparation most of the time. You know, maybe more for some of the younger guys. Day in, day out. Then you have to play. You have to be in the right mind. There's so many things that go on just to get them into this position, and that's for decades. You know, you do that. So it's hard work playing. So yeah, it's not just turn up and, you know, bang out some moves on the chessboard. It doesn't work that way. And yeah, I mean, the way the game's going, it all seems pretty sensible at the moment. I mean, this is one pawn structure that I think every chess player should know, right, David? I mean, this is one pawn structure. If you play the queen's pawn on move 1, you're very likely to get at some point in your chess career. And what are the sort of main ideas here, David?
Yeah, so this pawn structure, it's called the Carlsbad structure. There's actually a lot of material out there if you want to research. It's when one side has a structure like this, pointing towards the center, and the other side kind of has the same, but kind of on the other flank. And this just means that both sides want to play on different sides of the board quite usually. There are ideas, for example, something we call a minority attack, where white's 2 later march forward to kind of destabilize these 3. You could imagine a scenario where, not right now, but later, white supports this pawn pushing forward, push on again, maybe a capture, and you weaken black's structure in the process. There are often ideas as well of white stepping forward in the center. This is counterintuitive, perhaps, because white will end up, say black plays a move, white will end up with a isolated pawn in the middle, but a lot of open lines in the center. It's not clear who this favors. That's often in the air too. But in general, it's just about maneuvering, and it's about whose pieces will be more ready when the action finally does start, whether it's this pawn push, this pawn push. Black often tries to, again, very hard to show, but if black could, say here, castle, and let's say both sides castle their kings, if black could plant a knight in the middle of the board, maybe then black has great control. This is one of black's most common ideas. Black tries to play on the king side in general, if we go back to the current position, because his pawns are pointing this way, and white plays on the queen side usually, because white's pawns point in this direction. There's plenty of plans. It takes a lifetime to master these types of things, but meanwhile, while Alireza Firouzja is thinking, it looks like Magnus back to his laughter.
Yeah. That podcast that he's listening to, it's hilarious.
Whatever
we want to
he
know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Is it? Should we be a little bit critical of this? Magnus Carlsen, he's in the lead in the tournament. He's fighting to win it.
So much at stake, with
And
the
here
fans
he is.
there to watch.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it's bewildering, especially in light of the first game where he did not play up to his normal level.
Yeah.
And, OK, here, it's a normal game so far. And it's up to... The game is going to develop very classically, as David indicated. And, yeah, OK, he's smiling. So it's not a crime. Let's
No,
put it that way.
I mean, if you have to laugh, you have to laugh.
Yeah, you have to
obviously,
laugh. You have to put yourself in a good mood. But is he laughing again?
I mean, he's obviously not
can't-
focused.
It depends on how this game goes. If it follows the same trend of the last game, where he clearly loses all focus on the game, if it leads to mistakes, leads to blunders, leads to getting outplayed again, then it's clear what the cause is.
You can't play proper chess if you're in that kind of mode. I mean, Magnus is really talented, the world champion, so he can still play a great game, but you can't play your best if you're not concentrated fully. It's just like, it's impossible, right? It doesn't matter if you're laughing or you're crying or something. You just can't. You've got to be. Chess is a really hard game. I mean, like, you know, so that's why it's a bit bewildering. I think, you know. And
obviously, in over-the-board chess, this would be unheard of. Your opponent is sitting a meter away from you. You cannot be laughing. Here they have a computer in between them, but is it somewhat disrespectful to Alireza Firouzja? Will he feel that?
I mean, as long as he's not in his direct eye line, I don't think it will be too distracting for Firouzja. And I know Magnus for sure doesn't mean any offence. There's a lot of mutual respect between these two players. I think Magnus is just kind of in his own little zone right now, and he's not worried about the opponents. He's not worried about too much. But yeah, I mean, personally, if I do end up taking up that invitation to play in the tour, I don't think I'll be listening to any music, any podcasts at all, because it's just a distraction. It's not that long to have to concentrate. Each game, both players only have 15 minutes. It's half an hour. That's enough to focus. These players have been doing it their whole life.
It must be a podcast, right? I mean, just
something.
I think we're mentioning this a lot because we've never seen it before. We've played decades of chess in tournaments, and we've never seen it. So it is kind of like new, and it's like, what the hell's going on? Why is this going on? And back to the chess. Not much to my eyes has changed. Black should be absolutely comfortable, but pretty even still, I guess, the position at this moment in time.
Yeah, if you look at the way he was blinking there, he's definitely listening to something where he's having to actually process stuff. It's not music where you can kind of still kind of just have it on in the background, and then you kind of calculate. You still kind of working out the chess moves. It's definitely kind of the slow blinking there, and then occasional fast blinking. He's listening, kind of taking in information. Probably it is a podcast after all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we need to find out what this is, because
definitely
it's clearly affecting. It did affect his chess in the last game.
Be good to see his Spotify list, because obviously the players are allowed to listen to music, and I'm just really intrigued now to know what he's listening to. With Black's last move, this seems like a good move, David. I mean, it's all about manoeuvring the pieces to the best squares. Black's going to try to get his king safe, but that knight seems to be on quite a good track there, I suppose, to improve itself.
I'm not critical of what Alireza's doing, but I do find it slightly odd, because my understanding of these kind of particular positions, and I played them a lot from the black side, is that you do really want a knight on the dream square of d6. If you can get that knight there, and in this particular position where the light square bishops have been swapped off, it's sometimes really good to actually expand as far as you can on the left side of the board, and secure the c4 square. So that is, whenever I played it, that is the optimal setup that I found.
Wait, so why does that secure the c4 square?
Because you're basically controlling all the squares, all the pawn pushes around it.
Let's say we give each side a few moves.
Yeah.
If Black can somehow, it takes a while. It's not easy to show on the board, but if, for example, the knight could come round, let's say White continues waiting. If the Black knight ends up on the square, this is, I guess, your idea, Jovanka.
Yeah.
This pawn means that you control this square. White can never push his own pawn forward to kind of challenge the Black knight. This pawn is a backward pawn. Black's knight kind of sits here. It's not quite an outpost, because eventually it might get kicked away, but it's basically an outpost, defended, anchored by its own pawn, and it sits in White's half. It's very annoying, staring at a pawn itself.
So I've had this plan done to me by two very, very strong women grandmasters, actually, Humpy Canaru and Maria Mazicek. And I was really struggling with the white pieces. So this is, if we go back to the position, so this is, for me, my dream position for the black pieces. If you take a look at that knight, as David indicated, it's going to take an age. Going to take such a long time to get it to the d6 square, which is the beautiful square.
Yeah, that being said, this type of position, there are dozens of different plans. I mean, one was just pointed out by Jovanka here, but I guess his idea is to just challenge this bishop And when, for example, it steps back, he just wants to get his king castled. He just wants to maybe trade off these bishops long term. And there's nothing too scary that can happen to black here. The center is closed after all. Both sides have reasons to be happy. I mean, black will happily castle, say white kind of initiates this type of thing. Black can still go for this plan later, advancing pawns. Black can still trade off these bishops. He can still maneuver his knight back to the center, kind of aim for another nice outpost for a knight, another quite traditional one. Yeah, as Simon mentions, there's plans for both sides. It's just about maneuvering. There's not going to be any direct attacks anytime soon, most likely, unless Magnus kind of is listening to a really aggressive podcast and wants to do something a bit fruity. But yeah, the play will slow down for the next few moves before any more kind of entertaining fireworks. So personally, I quite like it. This is a decent square for the knight, traditionally in these types of systems. Especially if you want to end up playing on the king side, on the right half of the board. But Magnus, he's slowed down. He's been thinking for nearly 5 minutes now. I mean, it looks like there's a bunch of obvious moves. Well, I was going to say any move other than this one.
Oh!
First, I thought he might kick back this knight.
Oh.
This is maybe the most obvious move in the position. Kick your opponent's pieces outside, out of your half of the board. Also, you could just castle on this flank. But Magnus, yeah, Harry the H-pawn marching up.
Yeah. Hello, Harry. I mean, it seems a bit strange to not move that pawn one square first. If you're going to push the H-pawn, then maybe you can kick away black's knight first. I don't like having pieces in my own half of the board. And a good bit of advice is, you know, if someone does move a piece into your half of the board, like that black knight is in white's half, give it a kick, you know, give it a little kick away. So I do love pushing the H-pawn, and this move is clearly aimed against black's formation, his pawn formation on the king side. He's trying to attack that, but the black knight seems to now be anchored there on quite a dangerous square. So I also think where's the white king going to go now? And black just stops that pawn from going any further forwards now.
Yeah, the reason I'm so surprised is, as you mentioned, Simon, this knight is kind of cemented on a really nice square for a while, but also white has taken away the opportunity to castle himself. It's going to be really tricky now for the white king to castle, because this pawn, you just have to always worry about it. Suddenly the white king will not be safe on this flank. Magnus, he does have ambitious intentions, however. He, instead of castling, brings his knight forward. So he's stopping the black knight from jumping to the square at 1 to 2. And now he's arguing that his knight is perhaps just as strong as this black piece. Actually, he wants to kick away this black knight by pushing his f-pawn forward instead. I don't think we will see a bishop capture on this square, because actually this would trap the black knight behind enemy lines. The black knight now has no escape squares. It will simply fall off the board after it's kicked away by a pawn next move. So a small trap as well from Magnus. And there's definitely some idea behind what he's doing. He wants to kick away this black knight. For example, again, if black does nothing, he'll kick away this knight, and then I guess he wants to castle the long way and start opening the center while the black king is yet uncastled. Interesting stuff. I quite like it. It's creative, and creative in a good way, at least, compared to what he did in the previous game, Magnus.
Yeah.
Firouzja now with some questions to answer.
All right, well, it's not a must-win situation for Magnus, but he has to win at least one game today to take it to tie breaks. And this is so interesting on the tournament standings, you guys. Firouzja, before this game, is 2 points behind Magnus Carlsen. If he wins this in the rapid portion, he will be ahead of Magnus heading into the final day in the tournament. And of course, we're keeping close eye on Pragnananda today as well, playing against Jan-Christoph Duda. Duda, who won his match in Blitz yesterday to Magnus Carlsen, and Prague today. He lost the first game to Jan-Christoph Duda. He is currently playing game 2, keeping a very close eye on that as well. Magnus Carlsen, he keeps smiling in this game, but it is Firouzja in the move. And Firouzja, obviously, with the black pieces and in the lead, he's going to be very happy with a draw in this game. Yeah,
Firouzja would love a draw right now. We did mention, we saw those stats just before the show. Firouzja with black, not doing that well this tournament.
Yeah.
And whenever I've faced him or prepared for him, I've always noticed he's significantly scarier with white. With white, he just always gets his type of position. I guess that's like having the serve in tennis. You can always kind of plant it on a spot you want. You can kind of force your opponent into a certain type of position. But with black, somehow, yeah, Firouzja's style, his attitude is to always push. It was said that he tries to take the draw out of the equation. He doesn't want to play anything simple, doesn't want to play any boring endgames. And with black, it's hard to avoid that type of thing sometimes. And yeah, we'll see whether the color situation here favors Magnus in this game.
Firouzja ticking down to 6 minutes on the clock as he makes his move. Are you surprised by any? No.
Just improving the black queen. Very sensible.
So we're going to go down to Miami again. And Magnus Carlsen in a very good mood in the tournament so far today. Tanya, how is the mood with the spectators?
It's pretty tense, actually, and everyone's really surprised with Magnus's expression throughout. I mean, the games are really not going his way. But the thing is, we know Magnus. I think he is sort of just amused by how badly he's playing today. But he's got to get that, he's got to change that narrative because he's got 3 big games, 1 is going on, and of course he's in the lead and he could potentially lose out. We've got a mother and a son duo with us who've traveled to watch the tournament. Hey, guys.
Hi, thank you. My name is Vivi, and this is Oliver. And
Oliver, are you having fun here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing some games like right over there. Yeah. And also looking forward to having a lot of fun in here too. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite player?
Oh, favorite what?
A favorite player?
who do you like? Do you want to
Oh, a food?
No, player.
Oh, player, Magnus Carlsen, yeah.
Nervous.
I'm nervous.
I've got to ask you, can you make anything out of Magnus's expressions in there?
I don't know. We are excited to see him, so I hope he sees that the fans are here and we're here cheering for him. That's our favorite. We also we're also like in Giri. We're locals from US, where I'm also from Ecuador, but my little flag. So I mean, we're cheering for the US players, but, for Hans, but Magnus is our favorite, definitely.
Have you been watching the Hans interviews?
Well, I know I mean, we want to cheer for the locals, but yeah, not, they are people too. So they lose games, it gets into them. I don't like the comments, but I mean, like I said, I'm glad that Magnus is in a good mood because he's very excited to try to meet him today.
Lots of fans here, Kaya, and as they're saying that, bad days happen, well, Magnus, looks like things are not going his way so far. Back to you guys in the studio.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya. Nice to hear that the spectators are enjoying Magnus's mood today, laughing a lot also in this game. And we had some moves, David.
Yeah, we've had some moves. Both sides had knights in the opposition's half, and both of those knights have been kicked back. But more importantly, White has castled first. White has committed his king now to this left side of the board. The White king is very safe there, so it makes a lot of sense. And Magnus, he's ready to start stepping pawns forward in the centre as White. It feels like Firouzja's position is a bit loose. Black's king has to decide as well what it wants to do. Is Black's king really going to castle over to the right side of the board where there are some loose pawns? You need to get your knight out the way first, of course. If the Black king copies the White king, maybe it's not as safe as its counterpart there. I really don't like the black pawn formation on this right half. It just feels very tender. It feels like the black knights will be tied down defending for quite a while. And whose position do you prefer here, guys, just as the evaluation bar shoots up?
Yeah, I like what Magnus is doing, to be honest with you. I mean, it looks very natural. White's pieces are well placed, and the plan, straightforward, easy stuff. Push forward in the centre.
Yeah. Is now the moment, do you think? Would you go for it now while the black king's in the middle, or would you still build up? I guess White's rook could be improved in the corner. White's king could shuffle across. That's normally a good idea in these types of positions. Now or wait? Big question.
Yeah, I'd probably play it now. Just the black king's in the middle, right? So why don't we open a line towards black's king? I don't see any reason to wait here. I mean, you can build up, but if your opponent's king's in the middle, you want to open up. And probably want to open it up before the podcast is over or something, get it done, get the business sealed. But I think this is much more Magnus like what's happening here.
It's been impressive so far in this game from Magnus.
Very impressive. I mean, just the way the pieces have moved, and this move of the H-pawn was actually probably the start of this great plan, because just look at black's pieces. Alireza hasn't managed to get that knight next to his king ever into the game now, and I don't know where he's going to put his king. I mean, I really don't like the idea of castling queenside, and this is going much better for Magnus this game, more Magnus style. So yeah,
it's like things are just tangled up for Firouzja. Those two black knights look horrible, and okay, he does capture. Maybe he had to, and White takes back with the queen. Usually we would want to take back with the pawn, but this is the more direct attempt. Like you said, Simon, the black king is in the middle. why not play with pieces rather than pawns?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got an open file, put a rook on the open file next and just line them up against black's king. So
Position plays itself.
yeah.
It does. And if black doesn't castle, then Firouzja is just going to... Sorry, if black doesn't castle, Magnus is simply going to explode open the centre by pushing the d pawn forward. And
He might do it anyway.
yeah, he's smiling. So, I mean, he keeps on laughing. And I think it's quite nice to see good mood. And talking about good mood, whilst Alireza's thinking about how to continue, can I share with you a few selfies of how everyone is cheering for their favourite players? We have Abhishek, who's cheering with their budgie with some soothing music whilst watching the FTX Crypto Cup. Apparently, the budgie is very interested in chess and music. And Zero Blunders is actually cheering for Hans. He says, when you play with Hans, you get no chance, so take your seats and order some Uber Eats.
Very nice.
And
Good
finally, just a last one. Bob Bryan, American tennis player, sends a selfie and says, let's go, partner. Remember, he partnered up with Alireza Firouzja to win the Pairs Cup.
Yeah, the Celebrity Cup hand and brain. That is so cool. Bob Bryan following the action, rooting for Alireza.
So cool. I've watched so many matches of the Bryan brothers. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, experts in double tennis. Fantastic. We're excited to have you guys follow. We can see Levon Aronian getting up. That must mean his second game here is over. And what happened in that one? It's a win for Levon against Hans Niemann. A comeback. They are now tied, the two Americans, after 2 games. And a quite quick win here for Levon.
Yeah, they're just trading blows in that one. Niemann won in really brutal style the first game. Now Aronian just crushed his younger opponent. So 1-1, and hard to predict that matchup.
And in this one, the bar is now all the way over to Magnus Carlsen's side with the white pieces in a comeback situation here, losing game 1. Much better game by him than, I guess, this one. And the clock's ticking down to 2 minutes for Firouzja.
Yeah, it's looking very difficult now for Firouzja. It's actually a bit of a mirror image. If you look at the pawn structure, especially on the left half of the board, we had this exact same pawn structure in the previous game between these two, where Firouzja was white and won very nicely. It's literally the exact same pawn structure on the left half. And same problems for black, as Magnus experienced in the last game, black's king. How does it get across to safety? Black's king is cut off. Look at the white bishop, just kind of staring down that diagonal on the dark squares towards the black king. White's queen lurking nearby. Do you guys see a defense here for Firouzja? Or kind of maybe now or over the next few moves? It's going to be an uphill struggle, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think White's just been dominating this match so far. Firouzja won the first game very easily. And I think now, well, I think this is probably a pawn sacrifice here. For example, Magnus can simply just take that bishop, and the pawn in front of the white queen will most likely drop. It just looks really bad for Firouzja, this one. He was never able to get his king safed, and you know that's one of the things you need to do in chess, right? You need to control the centre, get your pieces out, and get your king safe. And he kind of messed around a little bit too much with some unnecessary pawn moves, maybe as well. That's another little error that is quite common without getting his king. Well, I mean, the king on the queen side is just not safe, is it, at all, there with white's pieces and that white pawn in the middle of the board being so dominant. So it looks all one-way traffic for Magnus here.
Yeah, this looks very strong, but I don't know, I would be reluctant to go for this pawn immediately, because at least now the black king is relatively safe. At least now there might be some ideas of black trying to attack with his rook. Still great for white, of course, with this massive extra pawn. Your knight coming in. If this black knight was somewhere else, maybe some small chances. But in the current position, if we go back, yeah, somehow it just feels like Firouzja, he's hoping, and there we go, Magnus doesn't take, he was hoping to give up a pawn just to survive. Magnus is going for more. He's saying, okay, I'm going to try and get this pawn anyway, but I'm also putting pressure on your bishop. And now there might be a bishop trade, but it's going to be on white's terms. And we could see the same scenario, essentially, if the bishops disappear. But white will win this pawn. But look at the black knights, they're even worse than in that last variation. Magnus, I think he's playing super well right now. And
this has been a good game. It's good to see him back playing. So clearly he's on form in this one. And he's played some very clever ideas and got a winning position easily, really.
Very easily.
I like the fact that he's kind of taken this relatively harmless opening variation and just injected some venom into it. And the position that he's got is just fabulous.
I mean, you're spoiled for choice. I'm not sure I would take this pawn right now, just because it would walk into potentially something on the open file later on. But, okay, I was going to say maybe this pawn is up for grabs. I couldn't see a reason why you can't grab this pawn. Magnus says, okay, I'm not even tempted. I'm not going to be greedy. I'm just going to improve my worst place piece, that rook. I mean, these pieces are just perfectly centralized for white. As soon as you get this white knight in the game, as soon as you kind of force a capture, force a trade on this square, which has just happened, all of white's pieces are perfectly centralized, perfectly active. These pieces for black are just terrible. And still a couple of pawns attacked. Firouzja, though, fighting, bringing his knight forward. The white queen threatened. I guess you'll drop back. You don't want to take a pawn because you walk into a nasty pin. But yeah, I mean, wherever you go, as long as you go to a safe square with white, say this one, lining up on a nice diagonal, it looks very, very strong. Firouzja upping the pace, though, down to 1 minute. And yeah, it still looks like a glorious position for white. Magnus just needs to stabilize, which he does by defending his knights. 2 great pieces, and it's the world champion's game to lose now. Looking good. I think we all prefer white's position. Black's king is far weaker than its counterpart, and black's pawn's not looking great either. What else to say? It's been Magnus in top form. This is typical Magnus. If you hadn't shown us pictures of him laughing, I would say this is just a great game. So smooth, full focus.
Yeah, now he's cashing in here, so you have to cash in at some point your positional advantages and change them to a tactical advantage. And by taking this, you win a safe pawn, because black's knight in the middle is now destabilized, and you can win that knight at any moment. So yeah, so typical Magnus. It seems like Magnus is back, and this is great. So it's going to be 1-1, which is what we want, really. We want a close match, and white is dominating. So Firouzja with white in the next round, is he gonna? What do you guys reckon? Is he going to just roll it out again and smash up Magnus? Is he going to do the business?
I mean, it's funny. Sometimes we look at the stats, right, and we say, okay, there's reasons for this certain pattern. It's not going to happen in this game. But we looked at the stats before today. We said Firouzja's great with white, struggles a bit with black. That's just happened. Sometimes the players, they forget to look at the stats. They're too busy looking at the moves when they prepare openings. I've been guilty of that myself. But yeah, Magnus needs to play solid the next game. That's all I know. Firouzja will go on the attack. He'll do his own thing. But
and it does seem with Firouzja, like one thing that could automatically like improve his game is trying to fix his openings a little bit with the black pieces, because he didn't really get the kind. I mean, playing the Queen's Gambit doesn't really seem to fit him. I mean, you've got to try to play openings that excel your natural talents. So, you know, so I'm surprised, you know, he's playing that opening, basically. Maybe he could try something else.
Yeah, there are more active openings that are still solid enough that he could choose. And Firouzja's problem, his whole career, he played really aggressively as black because he played lots of open tournaments where you need to win with black. Now he's playing the top guys. He's still quite young. Just adding that solidity, maybe something like Jan Nepomniachtchi, just adding the Petrov or adding the Berlin or something solid. Yeah, that might help him make that final step.
Yeah, you guys are talking about solid, and Firouzja's position is anything but solid. I mean, just look at the white rook on the 7th row. It's going to be reinforced by its sibling standing there on d1. The queen can come in as well. I mean, the position is just creaking for Firouzja. Something is going to give.
Yeah, white's a pawn up, and he has the positional advantages. And, OK, traded one set of rooks doesn't really help. What can you even move for black here? You can barely move the black knight. The black queen doesn't have any decent squares, really. The black rook is tied down defending the black knight.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that the black queen has got no active possibilities at all. And, OK, I mean, I like this move by Firouzja, but unfortunately, it's insufficient.
Yeah, look at this. Classic Magnus. He's back to his old self, back to his... back to top form, simply. He swaps the queens, heads into an endgame where he can just grind it out with his extra pawn. You don't really need to grind this one out, to be honest, because black's pawns on the right half of the board, they're just too weak. They're both going to drop off sooner or later.
35 seconds, and Firouzja's position is so difficult.
You know what I would do here, Simon, in this position?
He's resigned.
He has resigned.
Sorry, David, he got there first. Yeah,
I was going to say I would resign. It's that time of the day. But Magnus takes the win, an important one.
Wow, this is interesting, you guys. Magnus Carlsen ties the match against Alireza Firouzja in 25 minutes. Game 3 will start. Alireza Firouzja will have the white pieces in that one. Not looking happy, the young Frenchman, obviously losing this game 2 against Magnus. Magnus has looked happy the entire day. Now he must be very happy. An important comeback in the match, and I really hope he will stop for a comment in Miami. Let's see when he walks towards